Welcome to Let's Eat. I'm your host, Emily, holistic health coach and self-proclaimed wellness enthusiast, here to meet you at the intersection of physical and mental health, the exact location where optimal wellness lies. This podcast is meant to explore all areas of mind and body wellness, designed to offer you the integrative knowledge, behavioral strategies, and mindset shifts necessary to uplevel your health and feel better today. We'll explore nutrition, sleep, movement, self-care and stress management, habits and routines, gut health, mental health, and more. I am so happy that you're here. Welcome to the table. Let's eat. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Eat. Few things that I want to mention before we dive into today's episode, which today's episode is so important. I won't go farther. I'll explain more once we get into it, but it's such an important topic and we hear it all the time. It's kind of like a buzzy phrase that we hear in the wellness world. And I think, kind of explaining my take on it might help you feel a little bit more clear and, you might be able to understand it a little bit more. But before we get into that, I want to share that I am now accepting one-on-one health coaching clients. If anyone is interested in learning more, you can absolutely head over to my website. But for those of you who don't know, I'm a certified holistic health coach, and I also have a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. And all the work that I do centers at the intersection of physical health and mental health. So every client that I work with, every strategy that I suggest, and every issue that I encounter with clients comes from the mind-body connection or centers on the mind-body connection. And that's really where I operate from. All of my work focuses on how we can improve mental health and physical health through nutrition and lifestyle. And really understanding the connection between the two is my top priority, and obviously supporting you and feeling better. So I would love to work with you, and all you have to do is head over to my website and you can schedule a free consult. And during that free consult, we can talk about what your needs look like, what it would mean to work together, the programs that I offer, and really identify, does this make sense? Is this the right fit? And really working out all of those specifics to be sure that we are a match and that it makes sense for us to move forward together. So feel free to head over to my website. I look forward to talking with you, and I look forward to supporting you, and let's dive into this week's episode. So by now we have all heard the phrase, listen to your body. We've heard it. We've probably exhausted it, and probably some of us have no idea what that means. Hearing someone say, listen to your body, can be a really frustrating thing to hear, because what does that even mean? So I'm going to dive into about 5 different ways we can look at this phrase, listen to your body. And I think that whichever one of these resonates most with you, or you find it's most relevant to you, then take it, run with it, utilize it. Maybe all of these will resonate with you. Maybe none of them will resonate with you. But I think for the most part, at least one of these will help you better understand yourself, better understand your relationship with food, better understand why you're feeling a certain way, or what's going on within your body and the way your body's trying to communicate with you. Because ultimately, that's what it boils down to. When we say listen to your body, we're simply tuning in to what our body is trying to tell us. And that might sound silly for those of you who maybe aren't in the holistic wellness space, but our body is always communicating with us. I think bottom line, our body is always sending us signals, whether it's through symptoms or reactions, or even just gut feelings about certain things, right? Our body is always telling us what's going on inside, how are we feeling? And the second that we're able to actually tune into those signals, the more equipped we are at healing, the more equipped we are at feeling better, the more equipped we are at building our relationship with our body, and so forth. So the first way that we can interpret listen to your body, listen to my body, is by paying attention to how your body and your brain feel after a certain meal or snack. Now, I will preface this by saying that sometimes when there are intolerances or sensitivities involved, which allergens allergies, sensitivities, and tolerances all kind of have their own definition. But when it comes to sensitivities and intolerances, it can take time for us to make connections between certain symptoms and the food that we're eating. I would suggest, if you have interest in this, to work with somebody who's qualified that might be able to support you in navigating an elimination diet or doing something of that capacity to really identify the foods that are causing you symptoms or causing you trouble. But I think one practice that we can all get into without having to do an elimination diet is simply identifying how certain foods make you feel. For example, maybe something like gluten or something like dairy, right? Maybe those foods are causing some sort of reaction in you. And if you just constantly dismiss the stomach ache, the bloating, the this, the that, the headache, whatever it is that comes along with those foods, you have to be willing to listen to those symptoms in order to then take that as your body's way of saying, we do not agree with these foods. And I had a client one time who knowingly had reactions to eating dairy, and she simply looked past it for the sake of being able to have cheese and have dairy and so forth. And she said she was willing to take those symptoms and those consequences for the sake of having dairy. But what we really don't understand is by having dairy, there's an inflammatory reaction taking place for, specifically in this person. And those symptoms is the way your body is demonstrating the inflammation. And it's not that the symptoms are simply there and they go away, or you take a certain medication and they, kind of subside. There's inflammation taking place as a result of consumption of that dairy because of the way your body responds to it. And so being able to pay attention and make these connections and these patterns between certain foods, I use dairy and gluten because those are common inflammatory foods, common allergens that a lot of people can tend to have, issues with. So I use those as an example. But this is not exclusive to just those two foods. It's also not exclusive to just the list of common allergens or the foods that are more inflammatory. This can go for really any food. And so being able to make those connections and tune into the way your body's communicating with you after eating a certain food, that can be really telling about where you might need to start on your wellness journey, or how you might need to approach certain foods or go about certain nutritional, strategies in order to support the body and support your healing, reduce inflammation, and so forth. So that is one way to listen to your body, is by identifying how certain foods make you feel. And I think, kind of a tangent off of this one initial concept is also, how do processed foods make you feel? How do refined sugary foods make you feel? How do these refined oils make you feel? And really creating an understanding around what foods fuel you versus what foods really kind of fail you, I guess is a way to put it if we're sticking with the F and the F. What fuels you and what fails you. What fuels you will be the real whole foods. What fuels you will be the foods that offer your body nourishment, because that's what your body needs and that's what your body's looking for. What fails you will likely be all of these other processed foods, the foods that are devoid of nutrition and so forth, right? Do you feel particularly lethargic? Do you have a sugar high and then you crash? Do you feel depressed? Do you feel anxious? What are you feeling after you eat more processed foods, fried foods, and so forth, versus how do you feel after you eat foods that are fueling you, that are nutrient rich, that are whole? I think making that comparison too and identifying that dichotomy is a great way to find motivation and inspiration to choose the whole real foods the majority of the time, because we know your body feeling the way it feels afterwards is your body's way of saying to you, hey, listen, I'm not really a fan of that, right? Or please give me more of these nutrient-dense foods because I'm thriving, I feel good, and we should stick with those. And as an aside or a caveat from that too, I challenge you to really look at your nutrition and look at your diet, because I think a lot of times we normalize some of these symptoms and we feel lethargic, we feel fatigued, we feel uncomfortable or bloated or whatever the case is. And if our diet has been predominantly processed, or we're lacking balance, or, we're missing vital micronutrients, or we're not getting enough protein, or whatever the case may be, we might just live in this state of symptomology, right? We might just be symptomatic because we've just been eating these foods that aren't fueling us So we really don't know any different. And I think that this is a big issue within our country. For those of us who have only consumed the standard American diet, we don't know any differently about what eating real whole foods can do and how it can make us feel. And we've kind of just accepted this as our baseline, and as a result, we don't feel good, we're sick. So keep this in mind as well. Be willing to look at what we've normalized and consider, could I feel better? Could there be more? Could I not be feeling these symptoms? And could I have more energy? And could I have less brain fog? And so forth. And I also want to acknowledge the fact that privilege is a real thing and access is a real thing. So I understand that not everyone can access, whether it's in terms of proximity or economic status, whatever the case is. I understand that that's not always feasible for everyone. But my encouragement for you would be do the best you can. Read up, learn more. Identify ways for you to continue to nourish in ways that make sense for you, that doesn't put you in a space of stress or doesn't feel overwhelming or unsustainable. And if I can support you in any way, please let me know. Okay, another way that we can listen to our body is by tuning into our thoughts and observing how they impact our stress levels, our stress response, and our physiology as a whole. What I don't think a lot of us recognize is the fact that our stress response is very sensitive to the modern world. And what it was meant for centuries ago was to keep us safe in face of threat, right? It was meant to ensure our survival, to provide the body security by, responding appropriately to threats in our environment. So that means if a bear was coming at us, or a tiger, or a lion, or an invading tribe, whatever the case was, whenever our safety was threatened, our stress response was meant to equip us with quick action in order to escape danger and to keep us safe. And the intent was once we escaped the threat, once we escaped the danger, it would return to baseline. That was the plan. It was always the plan, okay, was that it was supposed to return to baseline. But nowadays, simple stressors in our lives are triggering this stress response. And even something as stressful as an anxious thought or a negative thought can have a profound influence on our physiology, on our nervous system. And what we know is that 80% of our thoughts are negative and 90% of them are repetitive. So you can imagine how influential this is on our body and how we feel and our stress levels when a lot of our thoughts, majority of our thoughts, are wired negatively and they're happening over and over and over and over again without our awareness, most cases. A lot of our thoughts are happening on autopilot, and then they're driving how we feel, they're driving our actions, and then they're also impacting our nervous system. So once we're able to really connect with the fact that our thoughts have such an influence on our body and our health and our nervous system and so forth, the more that we can really start to tune in and build awareness around what our thoughts are saying. And it's not so much that we have to be in control of our thoughts. It's not so much that we have to have only positive thoughts and that's it. And anything that is not relaxing or calming is not okay, right? Because even that, the way I'm just saying that and the way I'm thinking about that, that's stressful, okay? Telling yourself only positivity. That's toxic positivity. That's impossible, and it's also very stressful. So don't try to do that. But really, it's about cultivating awareness around your thoughts. And sometimes that takes silence. Sometimes that takes journaling, meditation, being present, really tuning in. And how often are we really being present? How often are we really, listening to our thoughts? Not often, because a lot of times we want to escape our thoughts. A lot of us don't want to be alone with our thoughts. And that's a topic for a whole different conversation. But for the sake of listening to your body and understanding, really tuning into the thoughts that are there and then working towards rewiring, reframing them so that they aren't so negative, aren't so toxic, aren't so stressful and anxious. And this takes practice. This takes time. We know that the brain is plastic. Through the field of neuroplasticity, we know that the brain is malleable, which at one time we thought that, you are who you are, you can't change it, your brain will stay the same forever, right? Once you hit 25, that's it, your brain is the way it is. But what we know now is you can actually prune away from old neural circuitry and rewire and reinforce other neural pathways that will then likely generate more positive thinking or more positive this, more positive that, more productive thoughts and so forth. in lieu of what was previously more negative. And obviously, like I said, it takes time. It takes time to strengthen it and rewire and reinforce. But through that repetition and through that process, you actually can see a profound change. And then obviously, subsequently, we can see an impact or a lessened impact on what it could potentially be doing on your nervous system and on your health. There will be much more to come on that topic because it's such an important topic. It is really foundational to learning more about ourselves. I mean, awareness is the key to transformation. And I've said that before, and I'll say it again and again and again. So really cultivating that practice, and I can share more on it or give more tangible strategies on how to approach it more successfully, but really something that we need to explore, consider, and integrate into our health and wellness journeys. Okay, so this one strikes a chord with me, okay? Because this one is something that I personally struggled with navigating for several years, and sometimes to this day I have moments. And this is all about listening to your body in relation to movement. Now, for many years, as I shared my story, I was a high-intensity interval training fanatic. I loved and still love a good sweat. I love challenge. I love to amp up my heart rate. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And in moments, that's very healthy. Okay, it's helpful for our cardiovascular system. It's great for detox, that we sweat. However, over and over and over again, over the course of many days and many weeks, this is not so good. This is very stressful on the body. It's very stressful on our cortisol. And by only implementing high-intensity interval training, running, and so forth, lots of jump lunges, lots of jump squats. Just thinking about them right now, my hamstrings hurt thinking about jump lunges. Oh my goodness. But only implementing that into our lifestyle and into our exercise routine breeds injury, breeds burnout, breeds stress and dysfunction. And it's just not good. It's just not good. So when I say listening to your body as it relates to movement, we're referring to waking up every day and tuning into your body's needs. Tuning into, how is my body feeling? Do I need a day of recovery? What type of movement is most appropriate for where my body's at right now? Another big thing to consider here as ladies is, where are you in your cycle? We have 4 phases of our 28-day cycle, okay? And we have our follicular phase, we have our ovulatory phase, we have our luteal phase, and we have our menstrual phase. And what a lot of people don't know when it comes to hormone health and cycle syncing is we should be moving based on where we are in our cycle. So earlier on in our cycle, in our follicular and ovulatory phase, it is recommended that that's when we reserve some of the more maybe higher intensity, some of the more intensive, maybe strength training and cycling and running and so forth. Some of those workouts are more appropriate for those two phases. Whereas later on during our luteal or our menstrual phase, that's really when we need to be slowing down, right? Our body's about to undergo a massive process, and it is a lot of stress on the body to expect it to move at the degree that we would when we're not menstruating, right? When we're not in this space. And for me personally, this is what was problematic about my relationship with movement is I had no understanding of cycle syncing. I would push through the cramps, the discomfort, the pain of my period and move the way I would want to move, whether that be running or go to the gym or the Stairmaster or cycling. And I just did not pay attention to how important it is for us to move in sync with our bodies. And that is just one example, right? That's one example of what it means to choose your movement based on your body and where it's at and what it needs. But just as a general rule of thumb, when I say listen to your body, I really do mean waking up every day and checking in with yourself and your body and what it's feeling. I have knee issues, and this is something that I've navigated for several years now, and that will really make a difference in terms of what I choose to do on any given day. Maybe I'll walk as opposed to cycling. I will certainly not do lower body when my knee is bothering me. And I really have tried to honor the fact that every day my body is going to feel differently. Past years and past Emily and my past relationship with exercise would not consider this. I wanted to work out every day. I wanted to push myself every day. I shared on my earlier podcasts. I went through a phase where I wanted to run all the time. And that was really disrespectful, honestly, to my body, to my health. And it probably wasn't doing much for me aside from stressing me out and causing me issues that I later paid for, both physically and then also physiologically down the line, right? In terms of my gut health, my hormone health, and so forth. But really being willing to, number one, listen and tune into when your body needs rest. And then also choosing your workout each day based on where you are, based on what your body needs. If you wake up one day and you're like, I want to go run 5 miles, then go do it. I believe that there's going to be days in the upcoming spring and summer, especially with Lulu looking at me and begging me to go, where I want to go run 3 or 4 miles. And I look forward to those days, especially on beautiful days when Lulu can swim and, we have ourselves a nice little morning. But then there also is going to be days where I have really pulled back the reins and said, you know what? My body needs some stretching. My body needs yoga. My muscles feel tight. My joints hurt, whatever it is, right? All just based on, wear and tear. Nothing necessarily symptomatic, but just based on, I pushed myself in my workout yesterday and my muscles feel really, really tight. I should probably do some stretching. Or today is the day that I can do a 45-minute HIIT and Hills class, which for those of you who don't know, that's a Peloton class, and it is tough. It is very tough. But I firmly believe that in order to have a sustainable relationship with exercise, you have to be willing to commit to listening to your body every single day. And I mean this in the sense of all the examples I just mentioned, but knowing that this is key, this is essential to having longevity and having a lifespan in your relationship with movement, because you have to honor the fact that your body has needs and you can't expect it to, operate at full force every single day. You can't expect it to run 6 miles every single day. And it's going to have different needs over the course of the month, over the course of the seasons even, right? Like I said, maybe during the summer, you might be more inclined to go run or to be outside and be more active. But maybe during the winter, yoga and restorative work and so forth is maybe more your vibe. And that's cool too, okay? So this takes on a number of meanings, but I think the bottom line here is being willing to connect with your body in a way, honor where it's at from day to day, take the rest that you need, don't push yourself, and be willing to roll with the ebbs and flows, because inevitably that's what's going to happen. You have ebbs and flows of life. Your body's going to go through ebbs and flows. It's going to prefer certain movement over others during certain times of your life, of different seasons, of different parts of your cycle. And really being willing to respect that and honor that, that is where you'll find the most success. Okay, so this next illustration of listen to your body is really more general, and it goes hand in hand with a couple of different concepts that I've already mentioned, but really just being willing to identify certain symptoms that you're experiencing, and instead of dismissing them as just being normal or overlooking them or just accepting them, I guess, really tune into what your body's trying to tell you. At the end of the day, symptoms are messages. Symptoms are messages. And really understanding that concept can change your whole entire life, both in a mental and a physical health capacity. Symptoms are our body's way of communicating with us. I probably say that about 20 times a day. And essentially, when our body is experiencing a certain symptom, it is an indicator that there's something going on underneath the surface. Now, I think what's problematic is our healthcare system has really dismissed more of the subclinical symptoms as simply just being okay, right? Fatigue, stomach aches, bloating, acid reflux, headaches, low energy, brain fog, poor concentration, the list goes on. These are symptoms that we've simply kind of just said, well, that's just a part of life. Or, yeah, I just deal with stomach aches from time to time. Or, yeah, I just have a hard time focusing. That's just how it's always been. And we've really kind of discredited the fact that this isn't normal. Just because it's common doesn't make it normal. I love that saying, and I'm so grateful that I just thought of that. Just because it's common doesn't make it normal. And there is nothing truer than that. We've just come to normalize these symptoms because it seems like everyone has them. Everyone's experiencing them. There's lots of over-the-counter medication that we can utilize when we have them. So this must just be the way it is. But I'm here to tell you, and maybe I'm here to tell you for the first time, that is not the case. We're not supposed to live in ailment. We're not supposed to live in illness. We're not supposed to live in these symptoms. We're actually supposed to feel good. We're actually supposed to feel better. We're actually supposed to live our lives in a way that is vibrant and flourishing and thriving and energetic. That's actually what we're meant to do. And I won't say that my life is always that way, right? I navigate my own health journey every single day. I go through my own experiences, but what's different between me and the general population is I'm not willing to allow these symptoms to go unnoticed. I'm very in tune to what my body's saying. I'm very in tune to the way it's communicating with me. I'm very in tune to how to address them or what to look for. And unfortunately, I just don't think that we have the education, we don't have the knowledge, and we're not told that this is the case, right? Our symptoms are simply dismissed and we simply just live with them. We simply just deal with them. We medicate them. We quiet the symptom as opposed to getting to the root of the problem. So my biggest emphasis here in the space of listening to your body is to really tune into these symptoms that you are experiencing on a day-to-day, maybe just during your period or, certain times during the month or after you eat a certain food or, whatever the case is, right? Really listening in for a good month. Take note, take stock of the symptoms that you're having and do something about it. Do something about it. Look at your nutrition, look at your relationship with movement, look at your sleep, really start to dig deeper. Work with somebody who's qualified. I know it can be very overwhelming and there's a lot happening sometimes and there's a lot out there and Google can tell you everything and anything and sometimes it's not so good, right? But working with somebody who can at least point you in the right direction to getting the help that you need or guide you or give you the resources and the information to better understand your symptoms, that is transformational. I swear by that. And I think we're not doing enough of this. I could talk about symptoms all day long because symptoms are simply just the surface manifestation of dysfunction or imbalances that are happening underneath the surface. And we're not doing any good for ourselves. We're simply allowing the underlying issue to perpetuate by letting it go and not addressing it or just medicating to quiet the symptom. And what really needs to happen in order for us to actually heal and in order for us to feel better for the long term, right? Because inevitably, if we're not addressing the underlying issue, it's just going to create other issues, right? You're just going to notice it show up in other places. You have to be willing to look deeper in order to get to the root issue, as opposed to what we've been commonly led to believe as, just take the medication, it'll quiet the symptom, you'll be out of pain, and we're not actually doing much about the issue at hand. It's so funny, just as an aside, it's so funny, because I get so out of breath when I talk about these things, and this is an issue. I've done it for my membership workshops, when I do any kind of presentation or work, any kind of public speaking or anytime I'm talking about something that I'm really, really passionate about, I really have a hard time breathing. So those past 5 minutes of me talking, your girl is over here gasping for air. You might be able to hear it in the audio, but good Lord, can I get and it's not even I can just stop and take a breath. I actually have to pause the audio so I can take a solid deep breath because it hurts. It hurts for me to not breathe, obviously. Oh my goodness. This is just a good illustration of how passionate I am about this. Okay. I'm so incredibly passionate. Symptoms tell us so much. I'm honestly grateful for symptoms. I'm so grateful for symptoms because without symptoms, we would not know that something's happening. And that's what's really scary. Something like, I guess I'm on a tangent now, but something like neurodegeneration and Alzheimer's disease and dementia and so forth, some of these symptoms and, the onset of the illness can actually take place well before symptoms appear. So we see that these, diseases start 10 to 15 years before we actually see symptoms, before there's any kind of cognitive decline or memory impairment and so forth. So how freaky is that? How scary is that? To know that this could be happening, but without outward symptoms, we would have absolutely no idea. So while I always want you to look deeper at your symptoms, and I think symptoms can be really uncomfortable and symptoms can be really frustrating, I'm grateful for symptoms because they allow us to know that something's going on, that something's wrong, and we can then do something about them. So if you ever hear me out of breath, just know I'm just feeling really excited and I'm passionate and I want to get my point across. All right. At the expense of me nearly passing out, that is what I'm willing to do so that you can get this information, you can utilize it, and you can apply it into your own lives. Okay. So my last listen to your body example is kind of a broader concept, but this expands far beyond food. Okay. This is examining how certain habits, relationships, environments, all of these components that make up our lives throughout the course of our day, how do they impact your energy? How do they impact your mood, your focus? How do they impact all of these important parts of our day-to-day, of our quality of life, and so forth? Because I think when you really took a microscope to some of these habits, whether it's having coffee on an empty stomach instead of having it with food, it's waking up and scrolling through your phone, scrolling through social media instead of just getting up and reading or journaling or whatever the case is. It's, laying in bed at night and scrolling and, focusing on what's going on social media or the news. It's, how you feel when you choose to meditate versus when you don't meditate. It's the relationships that fuel you. It's the relationships that drain you. It's the environments that fuel you, the environments that drain you. It's looking at all of these factors that make up your day-to-day and looking at what are the ones that fuel me, that support me, that, allow me to thrive and support my health, and what are the ones that inhibit. And I think sometimes, it can be so microscopic. It can be so granular, but it's about really drawing your attention to those things and identifying how your body and your brain feels as a result of it. Because then just making changes in those micro movements, in those micro habits, can actually transform over the course of time how you feel, your energy levels, your focus, your mood, because you're no longer engaging in relationships or environments or habits or whatever the case is that are just simply not serving you, and they're not contributing to your health and not contributing to your wellness and so forth. They're probably causing you more stress, or they're toxic, or, they're causing some sort of thought process within the body that's then generating certain types of emotions or a cascade of anxiety or whatever the case is. Okay, this is such a vague topic, and I'm trying to give more specific examples of what it means. But I think it really is specific to you, is looking at over the course of your day how to make things just slightly more geared towards your health and towards your wellness. Because ultimately, these are the things that are going to help buffer you and build your resilience around the things that you can't change, around the things that do drain you, whether it's a job or a relationship with a parent or a relationship with a sibling or a coworker or, the list goes on, right? So really tuning into those components of your day is one way, an additional way for you to listen to your body, because I don't think we make those connections so often. I know for me, for example, the habit of not going on my phone first thing in the morning is an eternal struggle, right? I think a lot of us can relate to that. And I notice how when I wake up and I'm immediately on my phone versus when I leave it on Do Not Disturb and I get up and I make my matcha and my greens and I take my glutathione and I read and I journal, I'm so much more scattered throughout the day when I start on my phone versus when I leave it silenced for the first hour or two. And I haven't gotten yet to the point where I'm disciplined enough to keep it away. I'm really working on keeping it far away from my bed and then hopefully in another room, which it sounds so silly when you talk about it that way, but that's just the reality, right? My alarm's on my phone and I, run my hatch through my phone. I do meditation before bed and that's on my phone. So it's really hard for me to part with it or at least keep it far away from me. That's a topic for another time. But, I do notice the shift there. And I wanted to give you kind of that example so that you can now tune into these small things that you choose to do over the course of your day and, kind of create that pattern between what are the things that help me feel focused, help me feel aligned, help me feel empowered and motivated and healthy versus what are the things that drain me, that scatter me, that, compromise my mood or my level of energy or whatever the case is. Okay, so that is the final of the 5 in terms of what it means to listen to your body. So we'll quickly run through them. First and foremost, pay attention to how your body and brain feel after a certain meal or snack. So really tune into the connection between how foods make you feel. This is not only just for foods that you might be intolerant to or have allergies to, which is a whole different ball game when it comes to gut health and so forth, but also what do nutrient-dense foods do for your body? How does that make you feel? Versus how do foods that are more, nutrient devoid or nutrient poor or more processed or fried or whatever the case is, how do those make you feel? And make connections between the difference there. Secondly, tune into your thoughts and observe how they impact your stress levels in your nervous system. That's another way to listen to your body, is really listening to what are my thoughts saying and how is that impacting my physiology? How is that driving my anxiety? How is that driving these emotions? Because a lot of times we don't even realize that we're having these thoughts. Then we're feeling anxiety within the body. Our brain is always trying to make meaning of what's going on, right? That's what our brain is meant to do. And so we can then perpetuate this experience of anxiety because we're trying to figure out, okay, well, what's causing it? And sometimes it's not even our thoughts. Sometimes it's physiological. And that's a whole, oh my goodness, how many times am I going to say this? It's a whole nother episode. It's talking about the physical causes of anxiety. Okay, so tune into your thoughts, observe how they're impacting your body, and be willing to rewire and reframe them. A good episode you can listen to is Mindset and Behavioral Change. It's one of my first episodes, but I'm also going to do a more detailed episode on how we can tune into our thoughts and what it means to reframe them and rewire the neural circuitry and so forth. So stay tuned for that. Here I am losing my breath again. Nextly, decide how you choose to move your body on any given day depending on how you're feeling. Okay? Every single day, listen to your body. What does it need? What type of movement feels good? What type of movement is not in the cards for you today? Right? Active recovery, so important. Take a walk, do some stretching. Doesn't have to be high intensity, doesn't have to be strength training every single day. Diversity and balance in your relationship with movement is just as important as diversity and balance in your relationship with food. Okay, so keep that in mind. Identifying certain symptoms you're experiencing in any regard instead of dismissing them as normal. Huge. Huge, huge, huge. Just because it's common does not make it normal. Symptoms are messages. They are telling you what is going on within the body. Okay, so listen in, tune in. What is your body telling you? And lastly, start to really pinpoint the habits, the relationships, the environments that are draining you, that are supporting your health and wellness, that are fueling you. Where can you make small adjustments? There are some things that are out of our control, right? You can't necessarily change the fact that you don't like your boss, or your boss stresses you out, or your boss is angry, right? But you can choose to fuel your body properly. You can choose to practice stress management and self-care. You can take 10 deep breaths before you have a meeting with this person or 10 deep breaths after you've had a meeting with them, right? Identifying the things that are in your control and the things that you can make adjustments within that are causing you distress or causing you symptoms or whatever the case is, that is what I'm suggesting here. That is what's important, okay? So, like I mentioned, listening to your body can take on a number of meanings, all equally as important as the next, right? Each of them serve us in a way, and they are all valuable in their own way. So I encourage you to take these away with you, identify which ones resonate, identify which ones feel good to you, which ones you maybe never had thought of before, and start to implement them. If you have questions about them, I am always open to talk, and I'd love to hear more about your experience with them. And this is a big part of the work that I do with clients, right? Is tuning into all of these components to better understand ourselves and better understand our health. So I hope that this brought you value. I hope that you move forward, within this space of listening to your body. And, I look forward to supporting you next time. So until then, be well and have a wonderful rest of your day.